I said the other day on Bill's show that I am not just a free speech advocate. I'm not someone who's just in favor of free speech. That would be easy for someone who's on radio and podcasting and blogging to say, yeah, I'm in favor of free speech. That's not what I am. I am a free speech radical. I don't think that there are really words to describe the depth to which I believe speech should be protected. The Supreme Court says that there are some limitations on it. I'm willing to accept that reluctantly, but as a general rule of thumb, I believe that there should be no limits on speech. There just shouldn't be. Now, I know that sounds weird, but it's true. But it does raise the specter of the question, Dave, is there something, some speech somewhere that is so offensive, so outrageous, so angry, that it should be censored? The answer is no, I don't think there is, but let's talk about it just a little bit. In the northern part of Washington state, there is a candidate who is running for state legislature, and there are candidates running all over the state for state legislature. The issues at hand, based on the ads that we're watching, there's 4 of them. You know this, right? It's probably the same wherever you are, but here in Washington, there are 4 issues. You ready? For the Democrats, the issues are abortion rights, January 6th. That's it. For the Republicans, it's inflation and crime. That's it. Those 4 issues, abortion rights, January 6th, inflation, and crime. Now, I'm going to tell you that 3/4 of those issues are not even substantive. One of those issues is substantive, but none of the solutions that are being offered by any of the candidates are. So why do I care? As I said, we've got candidates running for the state legislature here, and one of them running in the northern part of our state, which is the opposite of the direction of the video if you're watching that, so it'd be behind me, about 70 miles, is a candidate with a military background. Now, I am not always enamored with military candidates. I will tell you that point blank. It's not because of my background that I automatically assume that all military candidates are better than non-military candidates. I know there are many people who do think that way. I don't happen to be one of them. I also know that there are people who think that there are military candidates running for a certain party, they're automatically disqualified. That being the case, I'm not always enamored with military candidates. Spent many years, as many of you know, as an HR manager for a Christian organization. And I used to regularly be told by people that I was interviewing for jobs, you have to hire me because I'm a Christian and this is a Christian organization. Like you. Now, look, maybe it is, but we still have qualification standards that you got to meet, and you don't meet them. And your faith isn't going to overcome that. So there you go. Military candidates, however, always get my consideration. I always give them the time of day, but I am cautious, always cautious about their service claims because, well, it's too easy to manipulate. The fact that there are more and more Democrat Party candidates now with military background didn't used to be the case many years ago. I mean, there were some, but it wasn't a normal thing. But now it's become a more normal thing. I think that's an indicative indicator. It's an indicative indicator. That's a redundancy of a shift in the overall culture of the country, that more and more young people who are joining the military are perhaps not doing so out of the same motivations that have been done so in the past. But because of that culture shift, it does cause me to be more reflective and more examining of military claims far more carefully than perhaps I used to be. Here's the problem. and I'm going to say this, listen carefully, all military service except that ends with an other than honorable or dishonorable discharge, all military service is honorable. There's no need to lie or embellish your military service or one's military service. There's no reason to do that. There's no need to do that. Because for every military hero that we have, George Washington, Ulysses S. Grant, George Patton, Dwight Eisenhower, Norman Schwarzkopf, Bull Halsey, any one of them you can name, there's one of them. And for every one of them, there are literally hundreds of thousands of people whose names you'll never know, who actually did the job, but the leader got the credit for it. You know what I'm saying? All military service is honorable unless you ended up with a dishonorable discharge or perhaps an other than honorable discharge under certain circumstances. There is no reason to ever embellish your military service. You don't need to. I don't care what you did. I really don't. But at the same time, there's also no reason to lie about it. And unfortunately, this Washington state candidate for state legislature got caught lying about his military service. Now, he was endorsed by the local newspaper there in Everett, Washington, which is, again, north of here. It's a major Navy base. But he was endorsed by the paper because he seemed to check all their boxes. Here's a military guy who's a Democrat who supports the issues that we care about, January 6th, abortion rights. We like this guy. He's a good-looking guy. He's, sharp. And he also apparently went to law school at Yale, a few other things along the way. But he led people to infer that he was saying several things that were not true. Now, this is where it gets complicated because politicians know how to say things in a way that sounds like they're saying one thing, but they're actually saying something else. And this is a problem. This is political doublespeak. And anyone that's mastered it knows what I'm talking about. Anybody that's seen it knows what I'm talking about. You hear something, you hear words, and you think they're what you want to hear. But were they? I was commissioned into the Navy submarine community. That's what he said. What does that mean? Well, you could infer from that he was a submariner. He wasn't. And in fact, that's where the controversy starts. He put on his website actually said, it does not say this now. Today it doesn't say this, but until yesterday it did, that he was a Navy submarine officer, a nuclear engineer aboard a Navy submarine. He was not. And maybe his words were different than the words on his website, and maybe the inference was there, maybe there was. I'm not responsible for what you infer from what I say. I'm only responsible for what I imply. And I didn't imply that I was a Navy officer aboard a submarine, but you did. And your website said you did. He led people to infer that he was a nuclear engineer aboard submarines and that he was a law school bar certified lawyer, none of which turned out to be true. The inferences were not true. And in fact, some of the statements that he made were not true, which raises, of course, the specter after the endorsement came from the newspaper. Well, how did they find out that these things were not true? Well, therein lies a tale. His father, this candidate's father, who apparently did serve at some point, and by the way, this candidate served too, and this is what I'm saying. There's no need to embellish your record. If you actually did 4 or 5 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, why do you, even as a PAO, why do you need to embellish that? I mean, for God's sakes, Pete Buttigieg proudly says that he was the military Uber driver in Baghdad. It's all in how you phrase things, I guess. Anyway, this guy lied about what he did. And the way they found out was his father, who had served, was mad about that, was mad about his own son's laws. He went to the opponent, the Republican opponent, and said, hey, this guy's lying. What are you going to do about it? And after some discussions, they decided that the father would write a letter to the newspaper saying, everything this guy told you is a lie. How do I know it's a lie? Because I'm his dad. That's how I know. So he did. He wrote the letter. The newspaper, of course, didn't take this at face value. They said, well, wait a minute now. Why would he do that? And so they called the Navy and said, this is what this guy told us. What do you say, Navy? And the Navy said, no, he didn't do that. The Navy, here's his records. No, he didn't do that. So the newspaper, having verified the facts of the case, pulled the endorsement publicly. They publicly, on their newspaper, actually pulled the endorsement. And that's when the excrement hit the rotating air moving device, as we say. The candidate went BSC over it and immediately began to scream and yell that his father is the one lying. His father is the one making this stuff up. His father is apparently estranged from him. How would he know? None of this stuff. And oh, by the way, my father lied. My father's trying to take me down. My father is a Republican. And oh, by the way, the most serious accusation of all. Remember those four? What were the four, right? Inflation and crime, abortion rights, and January 6th. My father was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. He is an election denier. So, of course, he's lying about me. Except that he wasn't. And the Navy said, no, you didn't. You did not serve on a nuclear submarine. And calling it the nuclear submarine community because you graduated from nuclear propulsion school is not... You're trying to get people to infer something that isn't a fact, and you're not correcting their inferences. My conclusion is that he lied. All politicians do lie, but now we're into this area of stolen valor. Now we're into this area of this guy tried to imply that he's one of us, submariner, and he's not. And let me tell you something about submariners. When we see people wearing submarine dolphins, when we see people wearing submarine hats like that, when we see people wearing dolphins who have not earned them, who have not become submariners, we get pissy. I mean, some of you have seen me at my worst, and I know that. Some of you have seen me at my snarky worst. Some of you have had the honor of seeing me mad. You've not seen me in that situation. Doesn't happen that often. But when it does, we get pissy and we get mean and we get aggressive. We don't hit people. We don't smack them. But believe me, everybody within earshot will know that you are not qualified. And if you're not qualified and you're wearing those or indicating that you should be wearing those and you're lying about it, everybody within earshot is going to know about it. We're going to embarrass you. We're going to criticize you. We're going to call you names. And we're going to make fun of you. And if you don't like it, well, I don't know, next time don't lie about being submarine qualified. Don't lie about being a submariner when you are not a submariner. That said, stolen valor is a major free speech issue, isn't it? So major that the court has had to take it up. The court has decided that as long as you're not making money off the deal, you can say whatever you want. That's what that's the example I've used many times. I could tell you that I personally won the Medal of Honor through my incredible genius aboard USS Michigan, and I saved the ship and won the Cold War all at once. And for that, the president gave me the Medal of Honor. And it's a complete, total lie. There's nothing in there that's true other than I was a genius aboard USS Michigan. That part is true. The rest of it, it's nonsense. But as long as I don't get paid for it, this court says I can say it. And the only thing that keeps me from going on the air and saying that is my soul and the fact that some point somebody's going to question that. And then what am I going to do? Yell and scream that my father, of blessed memory, was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th? He wasn't. But, I mean, really, that's your counter argument to it? The second question is, he's running for political office. He's running for a job that pays, and quite frankly, here in Washington State, which is a part-time legislature, pays pretty good. Is he gaining financially from this? Is he using this lie to increase his financial position? I mean, he's technically not really a lawyer. I mean, as it turns out, he may pass the bar someday, but it appears right now that he hasn't done it yet, or at least he hasn't proven that he's done it yet. So if you're doing this to take a job, is that not financial gain? It's out there now. He did, in fact, lie about his military service. And here's the sad part. There was no need to. There was absolutely no need to lie about it. So what do? Here's the sad truth. The fact is that most voters vote party line. They do not care. They do not care that this man lied about his military service. There'll be a few here and there, the so-called undecideds, but I've said this for years. I don't believe there are any undecideds. I just don't. Sorry, I've never met one. I've never met somebody who's honestly going, yeah, this guy's for abortion rights and January 6th, investigations, and this guy's against inflation and crime. And I can't make up my mind between the two. They're just so close that I can't figure it out. I've never met that person. If you are that person, call me, 209-565-DAVE, or text me at that number, 209-565-3283, because I'd really like to prove that you're wrong, but hear from you, because I don't believe there are any. So the truth of the matter is that nobody's vote's going to change because of this. Very, very few votes will change from this. What might happen is some voters might not show up because they're going to think, well, the story's broken, he's toast, and so there's no point in going. But here in Washington, everybody votes by mail. My guess is most people have already voted anyway. The pulling of the endorsement by the newspaper, does it have any effect on the actual issue and the actual election, given the four issues that we talked about? Abortion rights, January 6th, inflation and crime. I mean, how is pulling this endorsement? Because just because you don't endorse this guy because he lied to us doesn't mean you're endorsing the other guy who's, against the same issues that you were for before. See what I'm saying? There was no reason for him to lie about it. There's no reason for him to get upset about being caught in the lie about it. In fact, what he should have said, if he actually had any honor, if he actually went to the military academy, and I don't know if he did or not. I read his website, but I don't know. Let me see here. Just like his family attended the U.S. Naval Academy, that's what he said. If this man actually attended the Navy Academy and actually went to Annapolis and doesn't have the moral fortitude to stand up and say, I lied, I misled people, I did something wrong, then I'm going to say to you that he didn't learn shit at the Navy Academy. He's not worth anything anyway. Because believe me, every Academy officer that I ever met, it would kill them to get caught in a lie. They would be so hideously embarrassed. They would probably resign and wander away and never be heard from again, because that's how serious they took this stuff. And that applies not just to Academy grads. That NJROTC guys the same way. And college commission, same thing. They all go to these schools where they teach them honor, and they teach them that you don't do that. I got books over there on the shelves, service etiquette for officers. I guarantee you that's in there about you don't lie. You don't tell people lies. And if you do, you apologize. Which tells me right there that this guy didn't learn squat at the Naval Academy. It was a waste of his 4 years. He shouldn't have bothered going, because he obviously didn't actually learn anything about being a Navy officer other than he could put it on his resume when he ran for office. Woo! I don't think it's going to matter. I really don't. If somehow or another he manages to win this election and the jury's still out, I'm not convinced he's going to lose. I mean, people seem to think he's going to, but I don't know. I'm going to wait till the election's over and see what happens. If he does win it a year from now, do you think anybody's going to care that he lied about being a naval submarine officer? Do you think anybody's going to bring that up again, going every time he introduces a bill or votes on a bill, they're going to go, hey, wait, that's the guy who lied? No. How do I know this? How many politicians have we seen who lied about their education? Oh, I was the highest rated student at such and such university. I got so many degrees. I wrote this in this paper. How many politicians have we seen who have done that, who have been caught red-handed doing that? And look where they are today. Does anybody care? Does anybody bring it up? Oh, yeah. People tweet about it. They bring it up and they go, remember when? That's the real guy. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Believe me. The solution to all this, the stolen valor thing, the solution to bad speech in general, is exactly what happened to this candidate in Everett. It's more speech. It's somebody else standing up and saying, wait, I have a better argument, or I have a counter argument, or I have better information. That's the solution to stolen valor. It's the solution to bad speech, is someone pointing it out, going, will it change anything? I don't know. But I know this clown's going to go to bed every night for the rest of his life knowing that he lied about this. Even if he wins, he's going to still have to live with the fact that he lied about it. And people are always going to remind him that he did. They may not care. They may not change anything. But he's going to hear about it. Believe me, stolen valor pisses me off to no end. But free speech is free speech, folks. It is. I don't care that he lied. I don't care personally that he lied. I care professionally that he lied. And believe me, if I was to run into him and he tried to tell me that he was a submariner, I'd bust his chops. I don't care who he is. Don't care what he does. He lied about it. Screw him. We're going to bust him up and we're going to embarrass him. But in the big scheme of things, do I think he should be censored for it? Do I think he should be silenced for this? Of course not. Free speech means you can say any fool thing you want. I don't care if it's this clown up in Everett running for state legislature. I don't care if it's Kyrie Irving, who today was suspended by his basketball team for not saying that he's not an anti-Semitic. He tweeted something a few days ago and people got upset and said, oh, he's anti-Semitic. Well, we should make him apologize. So he wouldn't apologize. And so they suspended him from his job. Now, look, that's a private company. The NBA is. They can do whatever they want. It's not going to make me watch the NBA because I'm not going to. But at the same time, I don't think Kyrie Irving should be shut up. What I think should happen is other people should stand up and go, this is where Kyrie Irving is wrong. And that's happening everywhere. People are pointing it out all over the place. Same with Kanye West. What a buffoon that guy is. Ugh. The fact that he criticized, my faith it offends me, but so what? I don't think he should be censored, nor do I think he should be silenced. If companies want to stop doing business with him, that's their business. And he should be adult enough to understand, he should be honorable enough to understand that if you're going to say things that make other companies look bad that supported you, well, it's probable that they're going to back away from you. But they shouldn't be censored for it any more than this clown should be censored for that. I don't believe in censorship, period. I do not believe that speech, regardless of how offensive, how outrageous, how egregious, I don't think it should be censored. I think we ought to be adults enough to understand how to deal with it. We're not, but I think we should be. And to that end, I don't believe in censorship at all. Frankly, I'm trying to teach Ben this. There's no such thing as calling for somebody to be censored because you don't like what they say. Tough shit. Come up with a better argument. Oh, you don't have time right now? Study. This isn't, you don't have to respond right now. You got time. You write it down. Be an orator. Learn these things. Free speech is free speech, folks. That's how I feel about it. It's how I always feel about it. It's how I always have felt about it. I'm embarrassed that so many people on my side of the political aisle are willing to tell people to shut up. and censor them. I think that's appalling. But it's true. I can tell you this. I wouldn't vote for this guy in Washington State, up in Everett. Don't live in his district, but even if I did, I wouldn't vote for him, and I never will. And I have the free speech to say, as my company commander once said, this guy's a dirtball. And yes, this E6 said that about an officer. He's a dirtball. And why do I say it? Because free speech. You don't like what I said? Come up with a better argument. Come up with a better counter to it, dirtbag.